Night with the Boys, the videos where we watch movies and then we tell you what we think about them. This week's episode is sponsored by Smith & Wesson Blue Steel Finished Handcuffs. Strongest handcuffs money can buy.
Where are you going? Nowhere. Jesus Christ.
Quick intro of everybody on the show. That's Steven Dixon. He is a award-winning filmmaker. He's made Sad by Lamp, which is a movie about a lamp, and he's made a movie called Rogby that's about a bum that is out for you to watch right now.
He also made B-Movie.
I did not make B-Movie, unfortunately. But Robbie is out for digital rental as well as digital download on Vimeo On Demand for $3 for the rental and $10 for the download. It's about 34 minutes long. We made it right here locally in Reno, Nevada. Actually, Austin was a big key part of it, and he wasn't, but that's okay.
I haven't even seen it. Fuck that movie. I'm just kidding. Go see it.
The download link will be in the description, or the Vimeo On Demand link will be in the description for you to watch.
In that description.
And then I'm Austin. I do pretty much the same thing as Steven, just on a lower level. I did not make award-winning movies. I've made a couple movies that have won nothing because they suck. That is Dustin. He doesn't make any movies. He just watches them, and he likes them a lot. So, but this week he's smarter than all of us because he read the book by Stephen King for Gerald's Game, and we have not. We've just seen the movie. Warnings. This is spoiler-filled, so if you want to see our review that doesn't have any spoilers in it, go to this time code. And we also use naughty language, so be careful around your parents. And also, this movie has a lot of terrible content about being molested and rape fantasies and a lot of fucked up shit. So if that triggers you, you probably shouldn't watch this.
Official trigger warning.
Yeah.
Officially.
Official trigger
right
warning.
now.
So, now we're going to go to a quick synopsis of what happens in this movie. A woman and her husband go to their remote cabin to try to rekindle their failing marriage. Gerald handcuffs Jesse, the main character, to the bed so that they can do some weird, kinky sex stuff. But it weirds her out and she doesn't like it, and they get into a big fight, and then he has a heart attack and dies. So she's stuck handcuffed to the bed. Pretty much the rest of the movie is her losing her mind and trying to survive on her own. And then she has to fight a dog that's in there that's trying to eat her and her husband the whole time. And then eventually she has to deglove her own hand and get in a car and try to drive herself to safety. Meanwhile, she keeps having visions of this big scary man called the Moonlight Man that she believes is the physical, her physical form of death. But it turns out to be an actual grave-robbing serial killer that's been just hanging out the whole time. And she didn't know that, which is pretty gross. At the end, she ends up surviving, and then she confronts the Moonlight Man in court, and then it's over. So
it's done.
It's kind of a weird thing to. It's kind of a weird movie to just say what happens. So you guys tell me 30 seconds or less, what you thought about the movie overall.
Who first?
You first.
Oh, who directed it again?
Mike Flanagan, the dude who directed Oculus and Hush.
Absolutely.
Okay, Gerald's Game. I saw the movie before I read the book. My first interpretation of it, I really like this movie. Probably, give it a 9 out of 10. There wasn't much that I saw wrong with it. I saw it for the third time last night, and I still enjoyed it just the same. The cringy parts were cringy. The scary parts were terrifying. It was pretty genius. I like a lot of the tips and tricks that they used. And then I'll get into it compared to the book when we get there. But yeah, I liked it. 9 out of 10.
Cool.
For me, it definitely resulted around an 8 out of 10. Its enjoyability, as long as story, as long as like technical aspects, like the way they filmed it and edited it, was, for like what they were given, which was a nothing but an entire movie that takes place in a bedroom scene, basically. Like, for what they were given, honestly, that never got distracting, ever. And it just felt, honestly, so smooth that I never really, was stolen away from anything. I don't feel like the typical moviegoer might feel like they might have been. And I feel like it resulted in the way, it perfectly could from this kind of writing. It honestly, through and through, kept my attention the entire time, and I didn't look away.
Nice. I would probably give it a 9.6 or something. as close to a 10 as I can get. Except I don't think I'm allowed to say 10 because that's reserved, for
Just
like
say
masterpieces.
fucking,
but
just say 9.
it's pretty fucking close to a 10. It's more than a 9, but less than a 10.
Do you have a masterpiece?
I think it's like what?
Do you have like a
Yeah,
masterpiece?
what's a masterpiece to you?
A masterpiece movie would be like Big Lebowski or like Inglourious Bastards.
Perfect. Okay.
Fair enough.
Or
Okay.
The Shining. Those,
Okay.
I mean, those are masterpieces.
Fair
those
enough.
are movies where
from like
there's-
from your opinion, or you like fully believe those are the masterpieces?
Well, I mean,
it's
it's
gonna be
always
his-
my
yeah, it's
opinion.
his
This whole
opinion.
thing's, I mean, it's always subjective. But
Right.
like, if I think it's like a 10 out of 10, like, there's nothing you can tell me about that movie that's gonna make me not love every aspect of that movie, no
And,
matter
like,
what.
defend
it's a
it.
perfect fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I would die on a hill before I would let people talk shit about The Shining or Big Lebowski or something because they're
On a
perfect.
hill.
Fair enough.
During
This movie,
sunset.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't die on a hill for it, but it is very, very, very good, and I think it was tragically underrated. It was one of the best movies that came out last year, I think.
Oh yeah.
And it was just a Netflix
It's
original,
great,
right?
and it's a
Yep.
Netflix original. I think it's one of the best top 3 of Stephen King adaptations movies.
Yeah.
It's perfect in just for the feeling that, I mean, I didn't read the book, but it's very rare to watch a movie made out of a book, and you can tell when you're watching it exactly what the book was like. You get all the same, like, the things that make Stephen King a great author compared to other people.
Yeah.
I see all that in this movie, and it's not even made by him. He wasn't involved, and I can tell that it's Stephen King,
Yeah.
even if it didn't tell me at the beginning.
The vibe is
The
nothing
dialogue
but
and the like
atmosphere,
spookiness
Yeah,
and the everything,
everything.
but it being like really fucked up and dark, but also like innocent spooky kind
Yeah.
of. Like
Isn't
stuff
that-
like
isn't
that
that
is
interesting?
solely Stephen King. Is all over this fucking movie, way more than it is in
Oh, yeah.
almost any other movie that that involves him at all. Their filming shit was great. Like, I've never seen a single room used so well, because almost 90% of the movie takes place in one room.
Reminded me of Buried.
Yeah, a lot like
little bit,
Buried
huh?
with Ryan
Yeah.
Reynolds.
Just
where
as
it's-
far
right.
as
it's like
the isolation.
one. It's like one room,
Pretty
like
much.
with some props in it, and it's like you'd think after halfway through the movie the gimmick would get old, and you would be like, okay, that you have to go somewhere else. I can't look at the fucking room anymore.
But at that point, the story did the walking.
But yeah,
dude.
this
They
one
didn't even
they-
have to think about
They
it.
set everything up so well and got everything going so well that you didn't even think about the fact that you've been there, except in the ways that they wanted you to, with the claustrophobia and the being trapped and alone.
Absolutely.
And it was great. I think it's a damn near perfect movie. The only thing that I don't like about it is that it's kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great movie, and I have nothing bad to say about it, but, like, before I watched it, because I had seen it before, 6 months ago, probably, or whenever it first came out, and watching it this time, there was so much stuff that I had forgotten the specifics of what happened, which is weird, because I feel like if it's such a good movie that I like so much, I would remember all the
Yeah.
things that happen in it. I
Yeah.
can say every fucking line.
We're
in
giving
Big
it 9
Lebowski.
out of 10s. We're giving it 8
Yeah,
out of
it's a-
10s.
it's a-
But at the same time, I can't like not agree with you.
Yeah, if
Like,
I hadn't watched it this
still
morning,
feels,
I would be struggling to think of scenes.
It still feels like a movie that I wouldn't rewatch again and again and again. Like, it wouldn't belong on my shelf for
Yeah.
some reason. I don't know why.
I
But
mean,
it
I
does-
would
it does just have that.
rewatch it, but it's not like it doesn't draw me. It's not like
I'm not
I can
itching.
I can sit down and if I see Inglourious Bastards, just the title, I'll
Yeah.
watch it every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I just will. This movie, I wouldn't. I'd have to be in the mood for it, and it's kind of a movie that I forgot existed until you brought it up last week for us to do, and then I was like, oh shit, that's a great movie. We should do that.
See, I
so
think-
it's one of those movies.
I think
to me.
I agree and disagree because first time I watched it, I fucking loved it. I remembered a lot of the bits and pieces, and I saw it for a second time after that too. I saw it, like I said, I saw it for the third time last night, and the reason I agree and disagree, I mean, I disagree in a way that I do remember most of it, but last night when I watched it, I picked up on a lot more shit that I had kind of forgotten about, and just shit that I didn't even know if I can, like, one of the things that I picked up, which I thought was really fucking cool, when they're first driving up in the movie, on the radio, like in the background, you can hear that they're talking about there's been a bunch of grave robbings and a bunch of,
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
I
That's
caught
so
that this
sick.
time.
What?
yeah, so I caught it last night when I
It's
watched
just
it.
a little bit of foreshadowing.
They're talking over it and stuff, and she even turns it
over
down.
the movie.
But they're talking about a bunch of grave robbings and stuff, and it's just like there's a lot of like little things like that, and a lot of references to other Stephen King universe stuff within the movie, and yeah, it's really cool. But we can go into that later.
Well, that's what I want to get into right
okay.
now is some of the differences between the movie and the book. Were there a lot of big differences? Was it because watching it kind of felt like it had a lot of Stephen King on it, but obviously movies and books are rarely, if ever, the same from, page to screen. They never really transfer over. So I was wondering if there was any, big, whole characters missing or, whole plot points missing or anything like that.
Yeah, there's... Well, funny enough, so I watched the movie twice, and then I just read the book. I finished it, last week sometime. As I was reading the book, I noticed that there was a couple, added things, and there was things missing from the movie. One of the biggest differences is, in the movie, the whole time the voices that she's hearing in her head and seeing is herself and Gerald. In the book, it's actually one of her old college roommates. Her name's Ruth Neary. She basically is, the Gerald kind of, It's not really necessarily, good and evil in the book. It's more okay, Ruth is, fucking serious. You need to get your ass moving. You're running out of time kind of thing. And then the other character, who would be kind of more like Jessie, her name is Goodwife Burlingame, which their last name, she's a made-up character. Jessie and Gerald's last name is actually Burlingame. I don't think it's mentioned in the movie at all.
I don't think they say that once in the movie.
Yeah, it's Burlingame, which I think is funny because it's Gerald's game. So, I don't know. That's how it's written, though. So she's a made-up character, but she's kind of goody two-shoes, but also sensible, especially with the Moonlight Man hiding, lurking in the shadows and stuff. It's more she's no, there's nothing there, and then the Ruth character is no, there might be something there. You need to fucking stay on your toes, kind of thing. So that's one of the biggest differences. And as far as when the movie actually plays, that's where I saw a lot of the different changes in dialogue, because she's speaking with two different people the whole time in the movie. So it's, in that sense, a lot of the most of the events and everything that happens is almost the same book-wise. It actually sticks really true to the
plot-wise.
The original source material. A lot of it's little differences. In the very end, when she, which I thought was funny, that she actually says it in the movie. She's I'm writing this with my hand because I need to or whatever, her bust up wrist or whatever. In the movie, in the book, she types that letter. She doesn't write it at all. And she's also writing the letter in the movie to Mouse, herself in the past, who got herself pretty much out of those handcuffs with all that. In the book, she's actually writing the letter to Ruth, her old college roommate, who was the more sensible one that she was talking to her in her head. So, I mean, they're kind of big differences, but they don't really affect the plot line at all.
Are they differences where it makes more sense? They were changes where it's just because it makes more sense for the movie to have them that way.
Yeah,
it's not like Harry Potter where they left out entire storylines and shit. It's more just
exactly.
It makes more sense for it to be Gerald and herself rather than introducing a whole new character in a movie that has much less time.
I think that the movie does a really good job with these changes. If it was, two random characters that they don't really touch on, unless they would have to show
they'd have to do a whole other backstory, and it would have to be a whole.
Yeah, I was actually kind of wondering about that. So they introduce a college roommate instead as one of her hallucinations, and these hallucinations feel the same emotions as she does, instead of being kind of their own sort of separate entities.
It's kind of, it's still so in the movie it does a really good job of Gerald's it's kind of good versus evil.
Yeah,
almost.
it's the devil and angel on her shoulder.
Devil and angel on the shoulder. In the book, it's more, it's kind of steers away from that. It's more okay, Ruth, the Gerald character, I guess, is more okay, we need to get shit done.
She's the survivalist.
Yeah, pretty much. Survivalist is a good word for it. And the Goodwife Burlingame character is... She's kind of no, we can just sit out and wait. The maintenance people are going to come by. They'll find you, this and that.
Okay, so instead of it being in the movie where it's Gerald is all the things that she hates about men. It's her bad side hating
all
herself.
All of the relationship
and then herself is her survivalist and her you need to be stronger than this. And then her actual body is the wimpy ass bitch.
Pretty much.
In the book, it's more her wimpy, timid side that she plays all day long to let her stupid husband be an asshole all the time against her survivalist roommate person. She put all of her good dots into this other, stronger person.
So now hearing those two different scenarios from both the book and the movie, I would definitely prefer the movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think the movie did it way better than that.
One of the things that I wanted to say, too, is I don't think Gerald's Game, as far as the book goes, is a bad book. Stephen King is my favorite author. My life goal is to read every single thing he's written. So I'm a big Stephen King fan, but I honestly really enjoyed the movie a little more, just because, you know, just as far as the plot devices, you know, having herself and Gerald be the actual voices that she's talking to instead of like two characters that kind of come out of nowhere. The movie, the book did do some things I thought were a little better. One of the little Easter eggs that I liked in the beginning when she's feeding the dog. So actually those scenes aren't even in the book at all. The book starts where they're already in bed and he's like chaining her to the bed almost. I think she's actually already in handcuffs when the book starts. Which, yeah, it's okay. So and I think the movie does a good job of like the build up in the beginning, showing the dog whose name is Prince in the book, and that's what I was gonna say. I thought that was kind of funny because she's like, when she gives him the Kobe beef or whatever, she calls him like Little Prince or whatever. Prince, yeah. His name in the book is Prince, so I thought that was kind of funny. There's references to
Gerald calls it Cujo after he dies.
Yeah, there's references to Cujo. There's a reference to awesome. Stephen King's main big universe, the Dark Tower series, when he says all things serve the beam. It's kind of like a throwaway line almost, but it sticks with you. And I heard it last night, and I was like, "Fuck, that's a big Dark Tower."
Is that what
line.
that means?
Yep. It's
just wish the movie wasn't garbage. It is.
The Dark Tower movie fucking sucks.
Not this one.
Dark Tower's awful. Don't watch that.
We're
not doing a review of that.
Dark Tower book series is amazing. Read those. Don't ever fucking watch that movie.
Until we make the movie. Yes!
Oh my god.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
That's why I checked the levels.
Sorry, man. Sorry if that got a little loud. It was just a little...
The movie actually takes place modern time, and the book, it's not that far back, but it's probably like 90s, maybe 80s, because they have like a actual like house phone
rotary
instead of
phone?
instead of an iPhone, shit like that. The things that I liked in the book better is just some of the scenery kind of things.
You mean like the exposition of the scenery, or like?
Okay, so one of the things, so when she annihilates her wrist, it really goes into detail. It's Stephen King, so he goes into detail crazy. The movie fucking showed it gruesome, nasty, gnarly.
Still nasty in the movie.
Amazing.
It still makes me look away.
But
I hate that.
Oh yeah, it makes me cringe. But in the book, they describe it like she's fucking draining blood. The whole bed is covered in it. Like it's like a nightmare scene in the book. One of the things I liked that the book did better is it kind of went back. The Moonlight Man, it kind of went back and forth as far as like, is it real? Is it not? In the movie, she's kind of questioning it at first, but then she's kind of like... Okay,
it almost immediately becomes like
he's a fucking actual threat. In the book, it does a lot better of a job as like, is he real? Is he not?
Wait, you thought in the movie he was real?
Yeah. Like, I think that in the movie... You know, at first she's kind of questioning him, like, you're not real, you only made a moonlight, that shit. But then as soon as she sees the footprint, it really kind of goes into like, okay, he's probably real. He's gonna be back tonight. I remember her saying that.
I think it did the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, because in the movie, because they had Gerald as this, Gerald was all of her like insecurities and all of her like fears and all of her negative sides, because it was like her split in half. His whole monologue about, the Moonlight Man, people are safe during the daytime and shit, but like now you're not, and this thing's gonna come and get you. I took it as like when he's explaining like there's a footprint, like you should be scared because that actually is death and it is coming for you. I took that more as like she has a real fear that it's gonna come and die, but not that it's an actual dude that's gonna come murder her, but she thinks that it's death. She thinks that he's like the angel of death.
The actual death.
She doesn't actually think it's a serial killer. She doesn't think it's an actual man in her house.
It's even set up that way.
She just thinks it's the idea, that if she doesn't get herself free tonight, it's gonna come take her bones and shit.
That's fair.
As an idea rather than him actually being a man.
And visually...
And then at the end, because both times, when I watched it the first time and this time, it still surprised me, even though I knew it was coming, that he was a real dude. Because I thought the movie totally convinces me that it's fake. Because everything
about it.
They filmed the movie so crazy with, like, people coming in and out of frame and, like, the husband being dead and then not dead. And then, like, sometimes the dad and her younger self are in the bathroom of the same house. Like, all of time and space and shit is so warped that, like, by the time they show the footprint...
This fucking bitch.
Hey!
Yeah, so I retract my statement as far as me saying that I liked the book better. I think the movie did it a different way, as making it death instead. Like you had a good point. She actually thought it was death, not like a real man. Yeah. So I think the movie does a really good job with that. The difference between that and the book is she kind of doesn't think it's death at all. She literally is like, oh shit, this is like. I mean, she thinks he's like kind of an entity, but she never calls him death. She's more like, this is like the fucking crypt keeper.
Something's actually gonna come and murder me.
So
in the
pretty
much.
Do you think it was a bit of a disservice then, just sort of chalking it up to it's immediately death?
No, because I don't think it's a disservice. I think that they did it different in the movie, and I really liked what they did it with, like having it be like the embodiment of death kind of thing.
Okay.
I think that shit's tight. So I think that the movie did a really good job with that. My original statement was that she just kind of believes that he's there like way too quick. But if she thinks he's death, then it's not like he's an actual man that's there. There was little things like I mentioned, them already starting in the handcuffs. One of the things she says in the movie, she's like scared that they're actual handcuffs before and they've used silk and stuff. In the book, they've actually used handcuffs like 2 or 3 times already. So, like, just little things like that. There's a whole character at the end of the book. His name's Ben something or other. He actually is, like, helping her, like, just deal with all her problems. And, like, he brings her to, like, the courthouse at the end of the movie with, like, and she, like, disguises herself to, like, get in there. And then she, like, confronts, I think his name is Raymond.
Yeah. Raymond something Boucher or
yeah,
some weird
he's got a French name.
They said his name was Raymond, for sure, though.
I like the parts in the book that I think that they kind of glanced over in the end when she's writing out the letter about his character. They go into the book a lot better about how they mention in the movie how he sticks to like male people and he takes their bones and this and that, and they just talk about that a lot longer in the book.
Like explaining why specifically male,
yeah,
and stuff like that.
The one of the things I thought was funny is the dog never tries to attack her in the book. Yeah, just little things. Also, Gerald. So in the movie, he kind of is just like he's what the fuck? I thought we were gonna come out here and plow and like this is gonna be all exciting, and it turns into this disgusting rape fantasy, and then he kind of is like just starts having a heart attack. In the book, she fucking kicks him in the gut and I think the nuts, and then he starts having a heart attack because she's like, get the fuck off me, like. Because she, he says, call me daddy or something, and that's bringing up the issues with her father in the past.
Was it Viagra in the book, too?
There's no Viagra in the book.
There's no pills at all in the book?
No. There's, as far as I remember, because, I was at the beginning of the book, but that's one thing I think I wrote down, too, is I don't think that there was any Viagra or any sort of pills or anything. I think it was just, like, kind of a long time coming, and the fact that she kicked him in the gut and stuff, I think that helped it a little bit. But, I mean, I didn't like that's not changes that I disliked at all.
I think those are better changes.
It makes sense more
better.
For actually showing that.
Honestly, a lot of what you're saying from the book, I kind of prefer the movie.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
And a lot of that stuff, it seems like a lot of these changes, or all of them so far, have been like changes just to make it, make the movie make more sense. Because like I'm trying to think and tell me if you know, but like he had to take Viagra in the movie because first of all that helps facilitate heart attacks a lot of the time. Yeah. And also because if he hadn't taken the Viagra, he wouldn't have put the water on the shelf above her head.
Yeah.
That's literally the entire reason he brings water, and she says you love that little blue pill because it makes him so damn thirsty. So how did that work in the...
Yeah, can you confirm
Did she have water in the book?
Because why would... she had the water in the book.
He just happened to put it there rather than having a reason to?
It was just, you have water next to your bed when you have sex or when you're going to bed or whatever. So it was just kind of like placed there. It didn't... I think that's why I like the movie better as far as like showing that, having reasons for why you're putting all the things.
More that reason.
It's just a little bit more plot hole security.
One of the things...
The whole thank God for those little blue pills thing.
One of the fucking things, too, that the movie does better is she's topless in the book, the whole movie.
Oh, really?
Or the whole book, sorry. I'm pretty positive, but I like that the movie does it better. Obviously, you're not going to want to be... I think in the book, it makes it scarier because you're that much more exposed.
Vulnerable, yeah.
It would just be a distraction.
But then as far as
for a film,
the movie, it makes more sense when she needs to use the tag on the dress. Because they have the dress in the book, and she just kind of thinks about that. But the movie does a really good job of actually connecting points and showing like little things.
Honestly,
that kind of stuff makes her seem like a stronger character with more survivalist instincts
and completely
to think about shit like that.
Completely within reason.
Yeah, too. And like to think about shit like that, like that's like a Bear Grylls kind of thing to think about, rather than like
There's nothing.
Oh, there happens to be a tag. Like,
Yeah.
books can get away with a lot more of that. Like, it happens to be there.
There's nothing uncharacteristic about her.
Yeah.
Pursuing the tag.
Yeah, and like books
and the water
books,
and everything.
Books don't
in the
have to
movie.
have everything because since you're reading it and imagining it yourself, you fill in all those little holes. So when they tell you they have a tag, it's fine. Like, oh, I filled in that world. It makes sense that there's a tag right there. But like in a movie, since you have to see everything for it to make sense. It makes way more sense that they rewrote that stuff for her to have reasons for things to be there instead of everything being an ex machina of, oh, there happens to be water that she can drink. Oh, there happens to be a tag.
Yeah, the movie gives actual reasons.
This one
for
makes way more sense.
And I don't know how well the book describes it, but the struggle on her face when she does have to go through those trials,
her performance
is
is
amazing.
a lot of.
fantastic.
I mean, it's Stephen King. He puts
good.
way more detail than he needs to in some of the parts. But the book does a good job about actually describing the strain, the pain, all that shit that she's going through. So in that aspect, I don't think that the book strayed away from that too much. The acting was great in the movie, so it gives it that. One of the last thing I think that I want to touch on that's different from the book and the movie, unless you guys have more questions, is the past scenes when she's Mouse. She in the book, she like full on isn't hesitant to like get on her father's lap at all. She's like excited to like hang out with her dad, and she's like she's a little
it's
girl,
like a full on stealing of innocence
as
kind of
it
thing.
being Stephen King, he would give it that innocence.
And
he totally would.
And
Absolutely.
those parts are kind of hard to read because it's fucking disgusting. And like she's even in the book, the movie does a great job about like the father being super fucking manipulative, and the book does the same thing. And but as far, that's one thing that I caught is, and I think that I like the movie better for it, is she's a little bit hesitant to like get on his lap, and then he like kind of convinces her, and he's like, no, that'd be dumb, like, and he's super fucking manipulative. And in the book, she's kind of more just like, all right, like, I'm like, please, like, let me sit on your lap, let me do this, because she's a little girl who loves her father.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't she?
Exactly. And so that's like one of the other like last things I noticed. But overall, one of the biggest things is just the characters switching from Ruth Neary and Goodwife Burlingame to being Gerald and Jesse. So a lot of the dialogue is different because it has to be. As far as ideas go, they pretty much gave off the same kind of things. The movie sets up the items that she uses a lot better, and yeah.
The one question I had on dialogue, what I noticed in this movie that I don't notice in most Stephen King adaptations, except the newest It did it really well, and like Stand By Me did, but one of the things that makes Stephen King, or one of the things that makes him the most Stephen King, is his dialogue in his books. It's just Stephen King. It's the only way to describe it. And this movie, the first time I watched it, like immediately, I feel like this movie sounded like it was very, very close to how he talks. Maybe not the specifics of the names they're saying, obviously, because they're different characters in the books, but like all his weird sayings and like weird shit that they say. Like the one that struck me a lot was when Gerald, the ghost of Gerald, is talking about when he's talking about when they were at that work party and he was telling that joke and you only heard the end of it, like women is just a life support for a cunt or whatever. Yeah. That's such a Stephen King line. Like, using the fucking C word.
That same line is in the book.
That's not a joke, that's just fucked up, but like that's something that he would say as a joke.
Life support system for a cunt.
Is there a lot of stuff like that stayed from the book to the movie? Because it sounded very... Yeah. It sounded like Stephen King
straight
wrote
out of the book.
Dialogue.
Yeah,
straight out of the book.
That was straight out of the book. The way that they presented that was a little different because, she's kind of... That's kind of the only difference is, just as far as those two characters, like the ghost characters actually being themselves. So obviously they're talking one-on-one, where as far as like the book, there's another character in it that I forgot to mention who was like her therapist for a while, who she kind of, I think she's the one that kind of brings it up, but she's just kind of like analyzing her about her and Gerald's like love and all that, and she kind of reminds herself of the joke that Gerald told, but yeah, it's the same like
it's the same words and stuff. It's just different setup because it's different characters.
Yeah, no, that line's straight out of the book. All the fucked up shit. They really did a good job about how they made the bad guy, the Moonlight Man, how they actually made him look, because in the book he's pretty much almost described the exact same way.
Yeah, that's what I want to get into now that we're out of the the book similarities. Now we're into just like favorite things that we liked. The whole everything about the Moonlight Man. He's like one of my favorite movie villains because it's just
You're made of moonlight.
fucking scary. Even that part, it still gets me because like the fucking like the way that they shot the first time you see the Moonlight Man was like when I realized that I loved the movie the first time because it's just because she's laying in bed and she's like she just has that like that fear of the dark that everyone has even when you're a grown up and it's just weird and she like heard something out the window and like the dogs and it's just kind of like odd and then it's that one shot where it like pans that way and then when it pans back like just his hands come out of the shadow just a tiny bit so you can't even make out that it's a dude. Like when we watched it the first time it was nighttime so my TV was really bright and this time it was light so I had both ways of seeing it and like you can't tell that it's a dude, but you can tell enough that watching it sparked that like primal fear that I had when I was like a kid and there was like a jacket sleeve that moved in my closet and I immediately was like, what the fuck, that's a dude. Like there's a man in the corner of my room. Like that
about that scene.
That weird shit. And they did that the whole like all of his imagery of and then when he like comes out of the shadow and like has his weird box of bones and rings and then at the end when she walks up to him and gives him the ring and he's just standing there like he doesn't do anything but like that's what's so scary when you think of like boogeymen at night like you don't think of them like running after you and jump scaring you like all the fucking movies do now. This one he just stood there and it's fucking terrifying like they made him
makes
great.
it a lot more eerie instead of right in your face.
Yeah, and it's the scary that you feel. It's not because when you're scared at night, it's not because someone's going bah! and playing really loud cellos in your ear. It's because you're feeling the fear. And it's so tense.
Question about the first time that you see him, because I can't remember it from the movie right now. But does she ever ask if it's her father when it's first coming out?
No.
Kind of thing.
No.
Okay,
She
that's
never
one
even
thing that I
mentions
liked
that.
about the book. She actually was like, "Dad, like, is that you?" Like, because she's fucking losing her mind.
That's actually
She never-
that's a pretty good little detail.
Yeah,
if I
so
do
she
think
kind
so.
of thinks like it's her father at first. I think she thinks it's Gerald at one point.
Yeah, she never says that out loud like Dad. But the second time the Moonlight Man comes, it's like in the middle of a fever dream / like flashback / talking to Gerald.
Yeah.
And at one point, like Gerald's leaning over her, and then it shows her, and then it goes back, and then Gerald is now her dad, and then it goes back to her, and then it cuts to the Moonlight Man sucking on her feet, which is fucking nasty.
That's
shit.
not in the book.
Yeah, so I think that's trying to get across the same point,
Yeah.
but she just doesn't say it as explicitly.
Wait, was it Moonlight Man or the dog?
It was it showed
Moonlight
the Moonlight
Man
Man,
and
and
then
then it actually was the dog because
Right.
it was in the middle of like a weird dream hallucination backstory, whatever the fuck. Because this movie is just a mind fuck the way they filmed it. It's great because it's such a like the story's so simple, and the having ghosts talking to them also is simple. I mean, it's happened in movies before, but this movie does such a good job, and I definitely because of the director because he did the same thing in Oculus where it's like a very straightforward concept, but just the way it cuts between real time and
You can see the style.
yeah, but
Completely.
and it works perfectly because it'll be a flashback of when the little girl is all stressed out and she breaks the cup in her hand and
Also
her
not in the book.
creepy ass fucking dad is
Yeah.
like cleaning her shit in the bathroom, but then it pulls back and they're in her bathroom
Right.
like in real time.
Yeah.
And then I watched that scene super close today. I rewatched it actually because I wanted to see if they had like tracked that in, like if they had filmed it separately and like put the footage together. But they didn't. It was practical.
it was
They just
practical.
had Elliot from E.T. and the little girl stand in the bathroom, and then they practically shut all the lights off, and you can see them just like standing still.
Who's Elliot from E.T.?
The main character in E.T. is the dad in this movie.
What the fuck? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, that's
I found
creepy.
that out when I watched
Unbeknownst
it.
to us.
Yeah, 'cause the first
I
time-
never
The
fucking
first
would have
time I
thought
watched
that.
it, I didn't even recognize him because the dude's 50 now.
Yeah.
And then this time I was like, something about his face, I know it, and so I
You
went on-
seriously recognized him?
Yeah, because he has that
Yeah, that's
weird. He has
crazy.
weird
I
blue
believe
eyes.
he's-
and
That's
like a rat
nuts,
kid,
dude.
so-
Yeah,
so I
that's
was
nuts
like-
that you
I was
recognize
like, who is
him.
that? And then I looked it up, and I was like, and then on IMDb he doesn't have a beard. In
Right.
this movie he does. He has like my beard. And so then I recognized him even more, and I was like, oh. And then I clicked on it, and the first one was E.T., and I was like, oh no, it's
Oh god. Dude, he's such
You
a fucking...
took the finger from E.T. and put it somewhere else.
Oh God,
He
Sorry.
plays such a good
Sorry.
manipulative ass.
Yeah, he
fucker
did.
in this one.
That was another bit of dialogue that sounded like it was straight from Stephen King. Was the whole part after
when he's like manipulating her
after
to, like,
he
be like, no,
after
it's my
he's
fault.
inappropriate and they're like in
It
her
felt like
room.
it felt like coming to the sewer, Georgie.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but
It
not
felt-
even.
It felt a lot
But
like.
No, but he's
worse
like-
because it was.
Well,
He's
of
like,
course
we're gonna
worse,
have to
but I
tell
mean,
her.
it had that same kind of predatory.
yeah,
like,
no. I don't mean.
approach.
I don't mean worse because of the content, but worse because like it was so realistically manipulative. Like that's the way ex-girlfriends have talked to me. That's the way, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, fuck.
no,
Climb into
no
my
one
closet.
specifically, but like. Just that weird shit where it's like, because like when you think of it's like he's tricking kids into coming in the sewer so he can eat them.
Right,
So it's not so
right.
much like,
Well, then the dad is tricking the girl.
but yeah,
into
but
climbing on
this
his lap
is
in this
it's
one.
awful, and that's why I put a trigger warning in front of this, is
Right,
because
yeah.
that was so. When I was watching it today, I almost cried because it's so like.
Dude,
He's-
she's such an innocent
and
little
he's-
girl, just wants to be best friends with
Well,
her dad.
and he's doing
such a fucker.
doing that shit where he's like, I'm gonna tell her like it's the right thing to do. I
Yeah.
have to tell her, and mom's gonna be mad at me, not at you. Well,
Yeah.
maybe she'll be mad at you, but I hope not, and I'll protect you.
God.
But
It's
and he makes
disgusting.
It is
and he
disgusting.
makes her decide
Yeah.
to keep
Yeah.
the secret,
Yeah.
which is fucking worse because then that
it's perfect
that's what
writing.
fucks-
It's worse,
so
but yeah,
despicable.
he's not kidding.
and then
it's perfect
it's
writing.
a perfect callback to later in the movie when she spent her whole life not being weak but being introverted
by
and
men.
not and she falls for the same man
Yeah,
that her
yeah.
father was, and she doesn't.
They even say that
Yeah.
his handcuffs
Yeah.
were like binding,
And
his
also-
was like comforting.
That
Well, and
last
they say that.
that last shot shows it really well with when it's the Moonlight Man and then it's Gerald and then
Yeah.
it's the dad. I think that shot was
Yeah,
amazing.
and she like it puts
Good
her,
montage at
and
the
she
end.
doesn't. She doesn't bring up. Gerald Ghost says that she didn't bring up when she heard that terrible joke because she keeps secrets. That's what she does, and she has that whole metaphor about like being the woman in the well
Right.
and how she won't tell anybody
Yeah.
anything all the time, and it lines up perfectly. If it had just been a regular kind of, it's terrible to say, but like a regular kind of movie rape scene where the victim is just told like, don't fucking tell anybody, you tell anybody about our secret, I'll kill
Right.
your dog or whatever. It's worse than that because
Oh, God.
she shackled herself.
Yeah.
He didn't. I mean, he did it, but like. That's the kind of abuse and shit that actually happens
And that's
in real
how she,
life, which
and that's
is
how she
fucking
remained
disgusting.
that's how she remained within that eclipse, because that's how it means.
Yeah,
like,
and then
she
that's
is
and that's
a part
what
of the
set up
eclipse.
the whole
the rest of her
callback.
life.
Yeah.
The rest of her life, she just accidentally did
And
that to
it was
herself.
it was fucking
Yeah, she
sick,
was,
but
she
it
was
was
just waiting for the sun to come out and she
yeah,
just
it was
couldn't.
beautifully well, and that's another thing I wanted to get into because we're in favorite scenes and ideas and shit. Is
Yeah, I've got an actual
the
favorite
whole
scene.
eclipse thing. I just loved because it first of all just looks fucking cool. Like
Yeah.
eclipses just look
It looks
great.
amazing.
And the whole like
lighting,
like
yeah.
when the
Oh.
terrible shit's happening and it's all red, like it obviously it adds that terrible mood. And then at
Yeah.
the end when she's
It adds
driving
that
away,
hell factor.
yeah,
to
and
it.
it's just fucked up. But like also it goes so well with her. That terrible thing happened to her during an eclipse, and like the dad even mentions like maybe the eclipse is what made me do it. Hopefully,
Yeah.
good thing we never have to experience another one of those in our lifetime.
But she's been trapped in it
as
the
if
whole
I don't
time
know what I'm
afterwards.
going to be able to do. And yeah, it's like this the sun, the moon's coming back in front of the sun, and she's given the opportunity to unshackle herself to be, as fucking
Yeah.
heavy-handed as the metaphor is. And it just worked perfectly. I can't think of a better way they could have shown
It's an
her
ac-
redoing her arc as an adult.
It's an excellent execution of heavy-handedness.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
any.
yeah.
If it's even like chalked up to that.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
normally-
it completely plays out.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Normally a way better fan of like nuanced kind of shit,
Yeah.
where like we have to do an analysis like this to even see the stuff. And this movie's
Yeah.
not like that. The simplest moviegoer will get the fucking metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beaten into you almost.
Yeah.
But it's right in that fine line where it's just a strong enough metaphor that it just blows the movie 10 levels above where it would have been if it was just a simple...
Especially with the final scenes, dude. Like,
Yeah,
showing
and, like,
showing Moonlight Man in like the red
in the
too,
car,
with the fucking eyes
Yeah.
and stuff, like
Oh,
the perfect.
God.
And that's
that-
probably the
that's
scene you're going to get
that
into, because that's my
amazing-
next
I need
favorite
to
scene.
get
So
into
you
that.
do
Let's
that.
get into that.
Yeah, go.
Okay,
Let's go into
so
that.
my it's kind of hard to pick a favorite scene, but obviously, just as far as the shot where it's the eclipse sun and the road driving and all the trees are going, that's one of the fucking most beautiful shots I've seen.
And
like,
it's all like silent.
oh yeah, it's
Or
silent.
it's just that ambient
It's
Yeah.
like
sound.
it's wonderful though because it's perfect, and then it's the most terrifying thing I could think of.
It's a
Because
perfect.
he's
it's,
in the back seat.
Yeah,
Less
so-
is better. in this
Exactly,
scene.
dude. There's
That's
no
for sure.
jump scare. There's no nothing. It just
Yeah.
shows him in the
Just
back, and I'm
shows
getting.
and
I have
shows.
chills now just thinking about it. Like it's fucking. Just the shot itself is. I'm a sucker for like really gorgeous shots, And so that gets me as far as all the red lighting of the trees passing, all that, the whole thing, just driving down the road. And then you look back and he's got those fucking terrifying eyes.
Because his eyes are the eclipse.
Yeah.
And then he leans forward and goes,
It's so sick.
Mouse.
and then
Yeah.
fucking crash. Like that, I think that's, it's hard to say. Like, if I had to pick one scene, that'd be the scene that I picked. Just for, as far as just how it looks, how simple it is, but how well done it is.
Yeah, and the impact, like,
nuts,
literally, and, like, just feeling-wise, because he's sitting in the back seat, and there isn't really any sound except this weird droning kind of hiss, almost.
Yeah.
It's just, like, a bed of something, like that weird, that subconscious sound that you can hear and then when it's not there, you know it's not there anymore. Yeah. And then, he, like, leans forward, and there's no sound, there's no, like, Foley or anything of him moving.
It was almost a perfect adaptation of a bad dream.
Yeah,
it was,
so. And it was so, like, that's something that you never really notice until it's not there, but, like, Foley, when people add, they add the touching, like,
any kind of sound movement.
Ticks like that stuff, like, you don't think that stuff's important, and
like
then then they hire a fucking Foley artist for $40,000 who does that. But then that scene didn't have it, like, when he, like, sleuths from the back to the front, it's, like, silent, and it's this weird uncanny valley of, like, that's not supposed to sound that way, and then the whisper is super loud right in her fucking ear. Perfect. And it's in your ears, and then it's silent, and then the car, it's like that's the hardest I've ever seen a car hit anything. When it hits that fucking tree, it's like boom, like she should have been dead.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I mean, movie rules, but, like, goddamn, she hits that fucking tree at like 70 miles an hour, and it's just fucking like, oh, Jesus Christ, you're just like, oh my god. Let's get into Steven's favorite scene.
Yeah, go for it.
Honestly, my favorite scene was when, like, it was just sort of starting to happen. When she was shackled to the bed, she's been there for a minute. That's one of the only things I kind of, like, questioned about the movie, honestly, was sanity slipped, it felt like, a little too fast for my taste. I don't know what dehydration truly does to the body. I didn't, like, check it out or anything. And they mentioned
She was there for like 5 hours before that happened.
Yeah,
right?
they mentioned like 5 hours, and then I was just kind of like, sanity slipping already? Anyways.
She did just see a fucked up thing, though.
She did see her husband die right in front of her.
They
gave her a piece of her flesh.
Throwaway line when he's like, I mean, watching a dog eat your husband will probably do that to you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I feel like you can justify it to that, but it just felt still just a little too, like, quick on the draw there for me. For me, it just felt that way. But it didn't, like, take away from the fact that when it started to happen, the madness was, like, just starting a little bit to, like, envelope her, and Gerald gets up for the first envelope. Thank you. Envelope her, and, like, Gerald stands up for the first time. Is like, what the fuck? And, like, and she's just like,
oh, dude, that part was
taking
so
it
yeah,
back.
and she's like, sweet, take the handcuffs off.
Honestly, I was kind of like, oh shit, interesting. And then it shows his, like, arm down there.
Yeah, totally
again.
threw me for a loop. I was like, what the fuck? I thought he was dead.
But what I really, really, truly loved about the scene was the freaking editing. Oh my god. I didn't want to say frick. I didn't want to say fuck.
No, the fucking editing.
Literally just said
because
what the fuck.
it was literally the editing alone, like the way that they, like, J cut and L cut, like, on, in, and out of that thing, like, to sort of help her understand what's happening and help the audience, like, also get on her level of sanity.
Yeah,
was
like,
just amazing. Like, Gerald was standing on one side of the room, and then she's talking to her other self, and then, like, looks back at the camera, and then there's Gerald, like, predatorily sitting on the bed already, like, right above her, arms, like, at the ready, kind of, like, like, they really made it feel like she was a total victim from herself.
Yeah.
And I really, really liked how they executed that. Mm-hmm. And knowing that this was the director from Oculus as well, like, obviously he's got that shit on lock. Now that we know that,
makes
like,
sense.
It completely makes sense.
Oculus is a good movie too.
It is good. I have problems with it, but there's still good things. There's good problems with it. Anyways, like, knowing this director and knowing how he's kind of got that awareness already towards, like, what is madness visually? How can we do that? Yeah, that is just great. Yeah. Knowing that somebody has that kind of just, like, approach and that execution, as well as, like, keeping the audience right there along for the ride, and he was fantastic.
He does it so well with, like. Because, like, anybody can edit a bunch of footage together all crazy, right? Yeah. Like, you could just put random shit together and it'll technically be crazy. Yeah. But he does such a good job of crazy editing that is absolutely wild, but like you can totally follow along. And it helps put you into that mindset even more. Because if it's just
not,
crazy,
it's not like you're
then
lost.
It loses you, and you're like, wait, what the fuck is going on?
It's not like you're lost, but he throws you through that loop just a little bit.
Yeah, it goes
and that's what I like.
And it goes exactly the same way as the character. The character that you're seeing it through her eyes. Yeah. So whenever, he stands up, and she's like, what the fuck? And at the same time as, like, when I watched it with Jamie, we're both audibly like, what the fuck? Yeah. And then she's like, everything the character is doing, you're also doing in your head. Instead of, scary movies where you're like, don't fucking go upstairs, you dumbass. Like, obviously he's right there.
Oh shit, he gonna kill you! He's gonna kill your ass!
There's no moment
that didn't happen at all.
There's no moment in this movie that's like that. Every time she does something, you're like,
oh shit,
I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah. And she's way smarter.
Yeah, or I didn't even fucking think of that. That's brilliant. Yeah, do it.
So that's why it takes me to that scene. Like, that just first scene of, like, the madness starting to envelop her.
The madness was putting her in a letter, putting a stamp
putting her in a letter, stamping her
ass,
and sending her to the White House.
The Moonlight Man kisses it and sends it off.
But it just, like, truly the editing there just felt so perfect to me.
Yeah. And
that I couldn't, like, not chalk it up any other way, to tell you the truth. Like, if I wanted to approach madness in a sense of, like, people talking to themselves, pretty much, basically, like, because that's what we can kind of assume was maybe happening in real life. Is she was possibly just talking to herself that entire time, or just straight up hallucinating,
or just
shit.
sitting there.
Who fucking knows? But just the execution was just spot on.
Yeah,
and I absolutely love it.
And getting into, now that we're talking about editing, the next thing we were going to do was teach Justin about L and J cuts, because you were talking about that.
I was going to ask about that.
In that scene, and I mean, it's pretty much like the middle 50% of the movie is L and J cuts. So
what is an L and J cut?
So a J cut is, the reason they call it a J cut is because in the timeline it would read J. I don't know if I can really explain that any better.
Like editing?
They would literally edit, so pretend that there is a line of footage.
Okay.
Right here. So what they would do is they would take that line of footage with its audio, split it, and then start the next shot above it and a little bit to the right, and therefore it would, like, create a letter J underneath it, because this audio was continuing while this video was showing something else.
Gotcha.
And that's basically L cut and J cut. The L cut is just the reverse of that, basically.
So what does
it actually do?
Yeah,
what it can actually do visually is, like, start your scene off with a completely different, like, say, like, an elevator door going ding in the scene of, like, a horror movie where a guy just sees...
and then it cuts to the actual elevator?
To the elevator.
Oh, I love that shit. I didn't know that had a name.
That's what an L and a J cut basically is.
I love those shots.
Only an L... So, with an L, it'll show... You'll hear it first, right? You'll hear it first. Opposite. With a J, you'll hear the elevator first. With an L, you would see the elevator first. And then, like, underneath it would be the continuation of the previous scene.
So J cuts are used way more often as, like, a transition. So, like, you know how, like, you two will be talking. It'll be the end of a dialogue scene.
I don't know why. The first one that I thought of, Prisoners, where they just get what's-his-face after he crashes the van or whatever, and then he's still talking or whatever, and then it cuts to...
It's a perfect
so that's a J cut that's verging on just, like, narration, but that is a J cut.
Yeah, because he's literally talking...
It's showing the van and the tree and shit while he's reading off, whatever he's reading, and then when it cuts to where... Because the dialogue isn't coming from the scene
he's interrogating him while that...
Yeah, and then so by the time it jumps into the interrogation, you know that that's where you were going. And then an L cut's the opposite, where... an L cut would essentially be that same scene if it had started with the interrogation and you heard him talking to the man, and then it cut to the trailer scenes.
Gotcha. Real quick, if you haven't seen Prisoners, to go fucking watch that movie. I don't think we even need to review that, because I think
we don't even need to review that movie. It is great.
10 out of 10.
It is Hugh Jackman.
One day we're gonna do
an
episode that just talks about Denis Villeneuve, because he's one of my favorite directors.
Fair enough.
And every movie he's made is fantastic, and we could talk about all of them for hours and hours, and I have to make you watch them anyway. So, yeah, those are J and L cuts, essentially. They're just when you either see the picture before the audio or hear the audio before the picture, and they're just cool. They use them in this movie the entire time she's losing her mind, so it'll be like...
They use it as a device, which I really like.
Ghost Jesse will be sitting next to the bed, talking to real Jesse about something. And then, what was the one example I was thinking of? They were talking about, like, whether or not the gardener was going to come or whatever. And so the husband is sitting on the edge of the bed,
right.
and he's like,
You mean
they're
the
not
gardener?
coming. Like, did you notice what the house looked like? And she was like, it's already been dusted and
Yeah,
cleaned.
they already came.
And then he's still talking, but you can't see him. And then when it cuts, he's now at the window.
Yeah.
And he's like, and
That's what I was
they
talking about.
already mowed the grass. And then when he finishes his line, the actor you're seeing no longer finishes it. You hear it on this side.
Oh, I
and then she
fucking
turns
love
again,
that.
and then it's him over there again.
Right.
So it perfectly encapsulates this, like, you don't know you don't know where it's coming. Like, it's not a man talking to you, it's you talking to yourself through different vessels of goat. Like, it's fucking crazy.
And what's even better is I think that they, like, took those characters, like, this is now her perception of Gerald talking to her.
Well, that's
this is how she
another thing I
sees
wanted
her
to get
husband,
into.
and that's awesome.
Yeah,
and then this is how she sees herself as well.
Yeah, and that's
which is very interesting.
That's what I was saying, or that's what I was going to say earlier that I forgot to about the difference between the book and the movie, is that I like it so much better that it's a different version of her and a different version of Gerald that she's talking to, not only because it's easy to make the, the good and bad, angel and devil
right
connections, but also because, like, she is by herself. Like, if we got out of her head, if we were able to watch her omnipotently, she is by herself, talking to herself or sitting there in silence, right?
right.
So
With
all of this knowledge that she's learning about, like, oh, the water's above me and the tag's above me and I can cut
Right.
my arm off, she's learning it from herself. She's not it's not any external thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I realized that, and I thought that was really
Yeah,
cool.
and it was perfect writing with the dialogue, because everything that they say, and I noticed it way more in this one, because the first time you don't really know what's going on, but this
Right.
time I paid really close attention to what they were saying, because I really don't like in movies when problems get solved, but like how, like a character will say something and you'll be like, but how do you know that? You weren't there. There's no
Right.
reason.
It's all her.
Yeah, and it's like just a weird little plot hole that, isn't that bad.
And it's all stuff that could be self-discovered.
Yeah,
as
and
well,
it's stuff
which
that could
is
be
even
figured out.
better.
So in this movie, they did it perfectly, and
they
there's
stuck to it
there's no hiccups
flawlessly.
with that. Everything
Yeah.
that every person says, whether it's Ghost Gerald, Ghost Jesse, Real Jesse, the fucking Moonlight Man, all the dialogue that she says that is to herself is only knowledge that she can know from herself. She's just putting it in someone else's mouth. Gerald is telling her like an asshole, because he's an asshole when he brings up, like, the joke that he told.
Right.
At first, it just seems like a weird, like, why are you just being a fucking dick, talking about how she's useless, blah, blah, blah. But then that brings up the fact that he uses that as his introduction to say, you've been sitting here for way too fucking long.
Right. Right.
Because he tells a whole joke, like, it's just, women only exist as a life support for a vagina or whatever, and then he's like,
Cunt.
actually, you're a stupid fucking cunt, because the sun's gone, and you've been
Yep.
sitting here all fucking day. And so it's like, she's telling
Yeah,
her...
he like makes her, he belittles she
Because
so
that's how
she's
she
that's how belittling herself.
Yeah, but
you
that's
know?
how she sees her
Yeah.
husband. She wouldn't
Yeah.
think of Gerald as anything else.
Yeah.
Especially since she's also comparing Gerald to her father, who did the same thing in a more charming way. But, like, that's the only way he would tell her that. And he's
Right.
not telling her anything that she wouldn't... He's not actually
That
a
she
ghost.
hasn't already
It's
heard,
her
yeah.
own head. And then he's like, why are you remembering... I loved they kept saying that. Why are you remembering that right now?
Right.
Because that's what brought you back in. Because, they're explaining expositionally what she's supposed to be knowing.
Right.
But then he'll say, like, why are you remembering that joke right now? Like, why are you thinking about this?
Why
There
does
must
that
be a
matter?
fucking reason. And then
Yeah.
she's
It's
she's
just how
like,
thoughts work, yeah.
she's giving herself, she's like plugging in her own idea light bulb
Right.
for it to go off. But it's
Right.
so much more clever than like how they did it in Buried or like 127 Hours, where the
Yeah. person's
person's stuck and they're just sitting there like, okay, what should I do next? Well, I have this much water, and this is when the sun, blah, explaining.
I'm gonna have to science the shit out
But
of
yeah,
this.
like if my arm's stuck, or I'm stuck on
Martian.
Mars, like on the Martian, like I'm not just gonna be saying out loud what I'm thinking. I wouldn't be doing that at all.
I
And
think
also,
Barry does a better job.
well, it doesn't do that so much because he doesn't really say anything.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like,
But it just kind of shows it, and then afterwards you're kind of like, oh, what the fuck? But I think that's what's cool about this movie is while she's like doing things, you're like, oh shit, that's a great idea.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
the fucking one of my favorite parts.
the straw.
Yeah, the straw scene where
I would've
Gerald
never honestly
gets on
thought of
top
that.
of her and he's like, I love that like pink slip that you bought.
That's what I
And
mean.
he just keeps repeating that, and she's like, why are you fucking saying that? And then
well, and then she
he
repeats
was-
her
he-
line of, I bought it special.
Yeah, I bought it special. I bought it brand new. Or he's like, you bought it brand new, and then she's like, oh shit, the tag.
Yeah,
and then
and
she fucking
and it's-
geniusly
and
uses
it's-
that.
yeah,
as
it's
a
perfect-
straw.
it's perfectly-
Who the fuck thinks about that? I mean, it's in the Stephen King
They even
books, so
did that
Stephen
with
King.
They even did that with the front door.
Because she left the front door
Like
open.
leaving the front door open and her like looking at it like
Yeah.
Maybe we should.
But then, like, her
It
face...
makes sense, though, because they're isolated up there.
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
What do they have to worry about?
And that's
honestly.
the stuff that, like, writers should use more often because it helps you get in the headspace even more. Because you're not... When you think about things in your head, you don't think about yourself expositionally. You think about yourself in relation to other things that you're thinking about.
Right.
Like, when you remember something, you're reliving the entire... She's reliving the entire dinner party where he told that shitty joke just to get to that one point, just like you actually do when you think about things.
Yeah.
You don't think in expositional dialogue. No
Yeah.
one fucking does that. It doesn't make any sense. And you especially don't talk in expositional dialogue. But her talking to herself literally as two different people makes it perfect to get out all of your stupid expositional shit that you have to do in movies for it to make sense.
Yeah.
But in a way that it in itself is engaging rather than like, oh, okay, I get it. You're explaining that she's doing something.
Right.
It isn't like that. You're just like... You're thinking just like she is. Like, why are you being such a fucking dick right now?
Right,
like, I'm gonna
exactly.
die. And then, the girl
What the
comes
fuck's
in.
the point?
And
And
then it
she's
turns
talking
around and
about
makes sense.
she's talking about how her husband sucks at sex, and she's pissed that he has to use a goddamn Viagra because it makes her feel unwanted by her husband, which
Yeah.
she is. And then her other self is like, yeah, but you love it. And she's like, what the fuck? No, I don't. And everyone's sitting there like, no, she doesn't. She's told
Yeah.
you she fucking hates it. And then she's
Yeah.
like, no, you love it. Like, why do you love it? Because take the pill
He
again.
needs- it makes
and
him
that was
so
a
thirsty.
perfect example of showing, not telling. Because instead of her
Yeah.
being like, yeah, but Viagra makes you thirsty, there's water. She was like, Gerald, go ahead and take a pill for me.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're like, what the fuck, you? Are they gonna, like, do it again? This is
Yeah.
weird. And then he takes the
he
pill, and then
drinks
you're
the
like,
water and
oh,
puts it on
fuck!
top of the
It's
thing.
because the water!
Yeah.
And then she does the same. She's like, oh!
That they totally
It's
showed
great.
at the beginning
Perfect.
of the movie.
And you already... Everything
They
that
did it
happened in
all
this movie...
great. They did it all
yeah,
100%.
They even show
There's-
the dress with the tag.
This
They showed
movie
the
is
dress with
also
the
a
tag.
fantastic example of perfect foreshadowing and callbacks being used expertly instead of just like for the reference or for the fan service or something.
Oh, that was in the beginning of the
yeah,
movie.
it's not like that.
Not
It's
like
it's
that.
like yeah, like you get in the middle of the movie and you're like,
Everything
how,
is
You're like,
relevant.
oh shit, I didn't even fucking notice that, but
yeah,
that totally
there's
makes sense.
no way to make plot holes. You could be because the first time I watched it, I was like, how'd the fucking dog get in there? But
Yeah.
because they literally explicitly showed you the fact that
They
he
left
wanted
the
to
door
bang
open,
so
yeah.
bad that they went inside and left the door open.
Yep.
And all of like every point you look at, there is a reason that it happened that way that you can't just debunk. Okay, so we're gonna go into the non-spoiler review really quick. 30 seconds what you thought about the movie without spoilers, and then give it a out of 10 rating.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
So out of 10, I gave it an 8 out of 10 because I thought the execution, the story, the acting, is like all the performances all around, including the Moonlight Man, just... I mean, nothing felt over the top. Nothing felt, like, underdeveloped either. And I honestly felt like the room itself was a bit of a character, given, like, the whole, like, exchange and what happens in there and everything. And just, you know, I truly really enjoyed this movie. And the fact that, like, more Stephen King books are being developed into more films is, like, awesome. And that this is a Netflix original is even more interesting to me too, because this hasn't been released into theaters or anything else, and it's just been released online basically, and that gives me hope for the future, being a independent director and all. But I honestly enjoyed it. It was a great movie.
8 out of 10.
Yeah, an 8 out of 10 for sure.
Book 5 out of 10. This movie 9 out of 10. I really just enjoyed all the visuals, acting. There's bits of it that were terrifying. The isolation is great. Just the storytelling itself is wonderful. I highly recommend this movie. It was a Netflix original, so I feel like it's not been seen by most. But seriously, sit down and watch it because it's wonderful. You don't need to read the book for it. Yeah, it's a really, especially for a Stephen King movie, it's wonderful.
I give the movie a 9.5 out of 10, as close as I could give to had the highest rating.
I didn't know it could do points.
I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. It's pretty much a perfect movie, except the tonal shift at the end is a little bit weird to digest, but it works. So overall, we gave the movie a 26.5 out of 30, which is that's a weird scale that we're using, but
Well,
26.5 out
Explain
of
the
30.
people
Well,
get it.
It's 1 out of 10. Yeah, there's 3 of us.
Combining our answers.
Out of 30.
It's combining our
26.5 out of 30, so it gets a solid A from us. Well, next week we will be doing a different movie, but I don't know what it is. So check back in next time.
It's been movie night with the boys.
Nobody Nobody told you that it would end up like this.